Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Find Your Edge. My name is Jordan Nagoli, and thank you so much for watching or listening wherever you are in the world. I greatly, greatly appreciate you. On today's episode, we are talking to my friend, Veronica Miller. She is the founder of Velu Style, which is a very fashionable women's apparel brand that focuses on sizes small to 3XL. And I believe your tagline is where style meets fabulous. And Veronica and I met at our networking group from BNI called Success Alliance. Every time she comes in there, she is stylish, she is fabulous, and I'm excited to talk to her about her story today, both her life journey and how she built her business. Veronica, welcome to the show.
Welcome. Good morning. Thank you for having me, Jordan. I'm so happy to be here.
Me too. Me too. And I'm looking forward to this because to give everyone context that is listening, in our BNI group, we have to have one-to-one networking meetings on a weekly basis. And you reached out to me, I think like a month ago for our second one-to-one. Mm-hmm. And we were sitting in my office just talking, and you were asking for my advice about getting onto a podcast, sharing your business advice, your knowledge, and kind of sharing your life story. And the more I heard you talk about it, I just sensed that there was something deeper there. You had a story to share. You even mentioned sharing your story could be healing for you. And I said, hey, why don't you come on my podcast? I think this would be perfect. We're all about sharing behind the scenes stories of people's lives. So I'm really looking forward to diving into your history today and learning more about you. But to give everyone a groundwork of kind of what you do today, what's a day in the life, a week in the life look like of Veronica right now and what you're working on?
Okay. Well, I thrive being in high energy, fast paced environments. So I like to keep myself busy. Sometimes I put way too much on my plate that I should, but that's okay because I love that. So day in the life, every day I'm always working on my line. I'm working on different designs. I'm working with my customers, either visiting customers or doing live sale appointments because some of my customers are not local, so I have to be able to reach them. Basically just being having multiple hats. You know, I'm the sales person, I'm the operations person. I oversee shipping and receiving. It's just a various amount of different jobs that I do. And then of course my networking, I'm very dedicated to our networking group and our networking company. I hold a role of area director for mentoring. So I love mentoring people, making people feel confident and comfortable. And that all kind of ties in with my line and the vision that I had for my brand, helping women feel confident. And that's how I got more involved in the apparel side of my business of Velu.
Wow. And was Velu started 2005 or 2006?
2005.
Wow.
So we started as a fashion jewelry wholesaler. I met in 2004, I met a woman who had a high-end jewelry line, and I was very intrigued by that, and she invited me to come down to the Apparel Mart, to the trade shows, and I went to the trade show and I thought, oh my goodness, this is fantastic, because I've always loved fashion. Mm-hmm. The joke in my family is they all knew that I would have something to do with sales or fashion because at the age of 4, I recited the entire Cross Your Heart bra commercial to my grandfather, and he paid me $50 as a come over here, give me a hug and a kiss, and here's $50. So that was like a big joke in my family. But so after meeting with this woman, she had invited me to help her in her business sell during the trade shows. And I did that. And then after about a year working with her and selling her line, I decided I was going to, oh, this is wonderful. I think I want to do this. She mentored me to start Velu, which was fashion jewelry, mostly natural stone jewelry. It was not a competing product with what she did. And then that's how Velu was born. She mentored me, and in 2014, I expanded into women's apparel. And so the main reason, the goal was because I felt that the plus size or curvy fashion, there was a gaping hole no one had what women really wanted. Nobody really shared what they wanted, but I knew that if I wanted it, because my weight fluctuated every year, sometimes I was thinner, sometimes I was not, that if I was wanting it, then there were loads of other people that wanted it. So, and I still had a full-time job. Wow. I worked for a Fortune 500 company and built my business as I was working. And then in 2014, I resigned from the job that I had, the full-time job, because I knew I was stretched. There was no more time to build my business. So I kind of took that leap and left a great job for a great dream.
Wow.
So,
well, we're going to dive into that in detail. Mm-hmm. You mentioned you love mentoring and you love helping people feel confident about themselves. Have you always been that way? And if so, or if not, when do you think that started?
I've always been the helper type. I think getting involved in women's apparel really started that whole journey for me, because so many people don't feel confident. I mean, whether you could be an attorney where you have to stand in front of, a jury and people giving a presentation or a debate. And if you don't feel confident, you're not going to bring your A game. And that's to anything. Like, I love public speaking. I love to be able to tell a story, to share. But if I feel like my top is too tight, or if, I'm not going to be, it's going to show my insecurity, and then I'm just not going to bring my A game. Like I said, I'm not going to do the best that I can do. So that started, to answer your question, that started probably in 2000, maybe 2012, I guess. Yeah. Where I thought, this is what I want to do, and I can do this.
Yeah.
And even when I trained people on my corporate job, people on my team, I always want to make sure that they felt confident in what they were doing and fully understood everything that was required of them.
Yeah. If you look good, you feel good. You feel good, you do good, you do good, you act good, you live good.
That's right.
And it goes a long way. And it's interesting that you say that, because growing up, I could care less about fashion. I was a basketball shorts and t-shirt kind of guy, really just shorts. If I could get away with no shirt and no shoes on, that was my kind of lifestyle in Florida growing up as a kid. Then as I got older. And then when I started dating my now wife, she's very fashionable. Mm-hmm. And I could not keep up with her. And she's like, hey, we're going to have to get you some new outfits. But it is a problem. Very prevalent, I think, especially in the female industry with plus sizes. And also men deal with it too. Men deal with not feeling good about themselves and clothing. And I think it goes a very long way when you can wear something that fits good and that you feel good. And it establishes confidence.
And for women that are curvy, that are larger than a size extra large, fashion has always been a challenge to find trendy fashion that, can really accentuate their curves and make them feel like it's okay to be not a size 3. I mean, just the industry has always, or society has always preached that you're not beautiful unless you're skinny. And when I was growing up, I always used to say I was the fattest skinny kid. So what that means is I wasn't fat, but I definitely wasn't the skinniest. Mm-hmm. But within my peers, I was considered not thin, which is crazy. Yeah. But that's just the way it's always been.
And it takes a toll on us. And getting into a deeper conversation, when you're repeatedly told that, it puts something into your subconscious. And I've been talking about that with friends recently, like the power of your subconscious and what you're feeding your mind without even knowing it. It goes a really, really long way. But going back to the point you said, establishing confidence in people is it can be one of the most challenging things to do for yourself personally, mm-hmm. but it can also be one of the most transformative things for someone's life.
That's correct. Absolutely. And being able to know that you look good, feel good, like I always say, is so important every day.
Yeah.
I mean, every single day, women should be, and men too, should be able to have that confidence.
Yeah. Yeah. And thank goodness there's people like yourself out there leading the charge to help.
I'm trying to do my best. I've had mentors too, and I'm always open to learning more and, gaining more information on the industry. There's much more for me to learn, I'm sure, but I just love it. I love what I do, truly.
Yeah. You're a great mentor. I mean, I've been in BNI for 7 or 8 months now. But here's the thing, as the new guy in the group, I watch and learn from people. And I mentioned this to you, I'm not just saying this on camera, I mentioned this to you a couple times, like watching you mentor, I believe, Calvin and Burke, their public speaking skyrocketed.
So wonderful.
I didn't even mentor them, and I feel pride when I watch them now. And they were never bad. It was just, hey, these are areas that you can improve upon. And so that's been cool to watch.
For me too. And when someone that I've mentored wins our Ivan for the best infomercial, inside I'm going, yay, And I always teach people that I mentor for the Ivan or for their infomercial, know your audience, meaning who is the one judging the best infomercial?
Yeah.
What do you think they get excited about? And that's what you should speak to.
Yeah. For everybody listening, this is every Thursday we have our BNI networking group, and you have to get up in front of everyone and give a 30-second infomercial about your business. Not a second longer. If you go a second longer, they will hit the bell, and then they'll make you sit down, and you kind of embarrass yourself a little bit. But it's one of the greatest public speaking challenges. And I already felt confident as a speaker coming into the group, and it really showed me like I have to get better. I have to be ready to speak on the spot in front of a loud group of people, and a dynamic and confident group of people. We've got some power players in that group. So it's kind of the definition of putting yourself outside your comfort zone if you don't want to do it.
Absolutely. The very first time I was asked to stand and tell what I did when I was visiting, and it was a big room, I thought I was going to pass out. I mean, I thought, what do I do? What do I say? What do I do? How do I keep this to 30 seconds? I mean, so you really need to practice. You need to know. You need to know, you need to practice, you need to articulate in 30 seconds.
It's an elevator pitch.
Yes.
And it encapsulates one of my favorite quotes by Mark Twain. I would have written a shorter letter, but I didn't have time. If you, man, everywhere in life I go, if you can be concise and get to the point. I say that ironically because we're doing a long form 2-hour podcast. But there's a time and place to do that, Right. You got to be ready. So let's go back in time, because I really want to hit each part of your journey, because you've done a lot in your life that I think shapes you into who you are today. Where were you born?
I was born in New York City.
Wow.
I am born and raised New York City girl.
What part?
Queens.
Yeah.
My family is from Manhattan. And I still have family there now, not a lot, mostly distant cousins and my brother, of course, my godparents and my aunts. They're in New York.
Nice. And what was life growing up? How long did you live in New York City as a child?
I lived there until I was 29 and a half.
Wow.
And then I relocated to Atlanta.
Wow. Okay. So walk me through what was being a child in New York City like?
I was very blessed. I had a wonderful family, very close-knit, loving, strict upbringing. My father was very strict, and I thank him every day for being that way.
Strict in what way?
Strict in that you had no cutting school, not even one class. You were in big trouble if you did. And he wasn't like a pushover. If he grounded you for 30 days, don't come on the 29th day asking if you could go out, because the answer would be no. But he was very inspirational. He was also a serial entrepreneur. He had a job and he had a business. So I kind of followed in that footstep.
Yeah.
Unintentionally, it just sort of happened. I had a very close relationship with my grandmother, my father's mother. That relationship, actually, my grandmother is the one that got me my very first job out of school. So I owe everything to her, because if I would not have done what she asked that one day, who knows what my, what my path would have been in life for business or, for work.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm close with my brother, and we have 2 siblings in the family, just 2 kids, me and my brother. And it was a good childhood. I don't have any bad memories at all.
My wife and I visited New York City. It was her first time a couple of years ago, and we would see kids walking to and from school. Like, for people that don't live in New York City, how the transit runs, how people move, the pace, the energy, it's very different from most people. Mm-hmm. And so, but I'm sure as a child just growing up in it, that's just life for y'all. So what was that like? Would you ride the subway by yourself? Would you kind of be going out and about by yourself? Like, that's a different type of childhood life than majority of other people will experience.
I got a flashback just now. So growing up in Queens, I went to a Catholic school, and the school was probably 7 blocks away. And we walked to school and we walked home. And sometimes I can remember probably it was in the 1st or 2nd grade, walking to school by myself, and my mother saying, "Don't dilly-dally," meaning walk. Don't stop and look at the bush and look at the flowers and, just walk, get to where you're going. And that was, back then, I don't think if I had kids now, there's no way I would let a 1st or 2nd grader walk by themselves. Sometimes I walked with my friends. Sometimes it was by myself. But we just walked to school. We went to school. We ate lunch at school, and we walked home. That was it. Yeah. There was a crossing guard. So I remember that, right by the school with the big street. But that was it. That's what we did.
Yeah.
And it was great. It's a whole lot different being raised and going to school in a Catholic school than it is in a public school.
In what way?
Very strict rules. Rules. When we moved from the neighborhood that I was brought up in, I was in the middle of the 6th grade. We moved to another part of Queens, and we then went to public school. And I remember coming home telling my mother after the first day of school, "Mom, they let us chew gum." Isn't that hilarious? And my mother still would not let me go to school with gum. She would say, "Do you have enough for the whole class?" And I would say, "No." "Well, then you can't have gum unless you have some for the whole class." Isn't that crazy? But that's what I remember most of. They let you chew gum. Like, we didn't have to wear uniforms. We could wear whatever clothes.
Yeah.
It was just very different. Still not as crazy as some of the public schools today, but it was very different. So I went from like 1 year or half year of a public elementary school, 3 years public junior high school, 3 years of a public high school.
Wow. So what age were you at the Catholic school?
Probably up until age 12.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's different. I went to 1 year of very strong Christian prep school, like sweaters and ties and slacks.
Oh, yeah.
Reciting Bible verses, like really, really hardcore. When I tell people about it now as an adult, they're like, that's kind of insane what it went through. And then I went to a more relaxed Christian school most of the time.
And my father went to an all-boys school his entire life. All boys and Catholic, like from first grade all the way to high school. It was all boys.
That would make sense why he was so strict. He
was so strict, but he was fun-loving.
Yeah. They
used to call him he's a marshmallow with he's a loud marshmallow. Like he's soft, but he was equally as stern.
Yeah. How do you feel like growing up in New York City shaped you?
Well, actually, I was bullied in school. I can't be bullied now, but I've only overcome I'm not a bully, probably when I turned 45. It shaped me in that I love the city, and I'm not a country girl at all. As a matter of fact, like I don't like to go to vacations in the mountains or vacations. I like to be on the go all the time, and it's fast paced. So maybe the answer to your question is it probably injected me with that fast paced fuel personality. Because my family was we were all morning people. I mean, we got up at 6 a.m., everybody. And just, no reason, just get up. You didn't sleep till 8, not because you were told not to, just that we didn't.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I think being street smart, probably that helped me be street smart. But I was also not as strong of a personality as I am now. I was nice. I was very kind, sweet girl, because my mother was that way.
Yeah. New York City definitely has that energy. And people have heard about it, but until you go there and you walk through the streets, it's difficult to feel it. What age did the bullying start?
Probably second grade. Even though it was a Catholic school, there are cliques, right? And somehow you get to, you get to know who the weaker person is. I didn't have any sisters. So a lot of the time the bullies had sisters, second grade, third grade, not in high school, mostly in grade school, which is so interesting to me if I think about it. Not bullied in public school, but bullied in Catholic school.
Yeah. People can be very mean. People can be very mean and ruthless at any age. What were they bullying you for?
Just, like not making you feel a part of the group. Exclusion. Also, I can remember, this is going to sound so funny, but so kids had money to get ice cream from the ice cream truck. And sometimes my mother didn't have money for the ice cream truck. So she gave me like a ding dong, like one of those cakes, the chocolate cakes.
Yeah.
Stuffed in an ice cream cake cone. So everybody had ice cream except for me. I had this ding dong ice cream cone, and they made fun of me. And so I felt bad. I didn't know how to say, yeah, but mine is better, whatever. Yeah. I didn't know how to stick up for myself. I just kind of cried.
Yeah.
Isn't that terrible? That's so mean. And like just different things like that. Or, being the chubbiest skinny kid, that's really hurtful. And so when you bully somebody like that, you make fun of them, that sticks with you a long time.
Forever.
Yeah, forever. It does, forever. And so, but like things like that, or you can't come with us, or, things like that. You have to stay back, just silly things like that. But that's the bullying.
It is bullying. Have you ever seen the movie Inside Out? The Pixar one about the emotions?
No, I have not.
I'd highly recommend it because they show something called creating a core memory, which is, it's something that no matter what age you are, you remember it. And core memories can be good or bad, and there's different colors for good or bad. And that's a core memory right there. Like that, it sticks with you, and it's painful. But kind of seeing who you are today, it's one of the things I'm always fascinated about with this show is I psychoanalyze people, and I try to put how they are today back to their childhood. And you can already see right there, like being excluded, not feeling, like people making you not feel confident, less than, is the worst feeling ever. And then fast forward years later, and you kind of get to do the opposite for people. You get to uplift them.
Right.
And make them feel better.
And teach people how to set boundaries.
Yes.
Because I never knew how to do that.
Especially if you said you're the nice person, and also you're young. It's very difficult to communicate and stand up for yourself at that age, especially here's the other true fact. If you're not confident, it is hard to fake confidence.
Exactly, it is.
Because as adults, I feel confident some days. Other days I don't feel confident, but I at least know how to fake the confidence when it comes through. But it is interesting when you share those small things about the ice cream, about being excluded, because as an adult, you look back and you're like, oh, that wasn't that big of a deal, but it was. It was a big deal. Because when I think back, I was really, really tiny growing up. Like I didn't have a growth spurt till I was late in high school. So I'd get made fun of. Because I had someone ask me recently, they're like, were you ever bullied as a kid? And I was like, no, I wasn't. They're like, nobody ever made fun of you for anything. I was like, well, people made fun of me for being really short and really small. And check this out. I promised myself, I was like, one day I'm going to get so big and strong that nobody can hurt me or make fun of me. And that was a major driving factor to going into martial arts and learning how to fight and train and weightlifting and kind of being strong. And I didn't really put that together until recently.
Yep. Yeah, bullying is so bad. And the people, and now with cyber, oh my goodness.
It's way worse.
I cannot even imagine, honestly. I couldn't imagine.
It is, I don't have children, and I've talked to some of my friends that do. And it breaks my heart what they go through. And it's a lot worse because you can hide it easier and the masses can gang up on you.
Yes.
And things can spiral quickly. You know, if a rumor gets spread at school 10, 20, 30 years ago, it might get around, it'll fizzle out. One rumor, 10 seconds now, it's out there to the world.
I can remember, this just came in my mind. I can remember I had a best friend. We were 13. And I met her actually at the religious instruction, the Catholic school. And my father always told me that she was not a good friend. She was not, you should not be with this girl. And I didn't listen to him. And he did not like me being friends with this girl. And she often, now that I think about it, the way that she treated me in a friendship was like bullying. It was bad. It was bad. And I should have listened to my dad, but I didn't. So, but I can remember her father telling her, this girl, you need to make sure she's your friend for your whole life. She's a really good girl. Yes, about me. But, you know, we sizzled apart. Like she went one way and I went another direction in my life, you know. So, but yeah, I can remember that. My father was he was so smart.
Yeah.
And I am thankful for everything that he instilled in me. Everything.
He seems like a great man. It seems like you both had a really strong relationship throughout your life.
We had a strong relationship after I graduated from high school. Because he was so strict, I was not super rebellious because I feared the wrath of Dad.
Yeah.
But we didn't have that close. He wasn't an emotional man, meaning he didn't show his emotion. So he had like that stern wall all the time. But when I graduated high school, I remember him saying to me, I've done my job. Hopefully I've taught you what you need to know. You're on your own, meaning make your decisions, whatever it was, you know. And I'm thankful that he was so strict, because who knows what, I could have been with the wrong people, you know, at the wrong time and gotten in trouble. And so, yeah.
He knew. Did your dad also grow up in New York City? Was he born there?
Oh, yeah, he knew.
So born and raised. So he had an understanding of what was going to happen.
Yes.
And yeah, and I could be wrong here, but I feel like when you grow up and live in that city, you're raised differently. You kind of have the street smarts. Because one thing, I was born in Florida and I grew up here in Atlanta, but you can be, what would be the right word? Sheltered.
Yeah.
It's very easy to be sheltered. And don't get me wrong, I believe in rules and I believe in keeping people away from a certain amount of danger. But if you shelter someone to believe the bubble is the world, they're going to suffocate.
Yes.
When they get out.
He didn't shelter. He just explained that this is the expectation, basically. You know, he would say to me, I go to work every day. Every day you know that I'm at work. So therefore, you have to go to school every day, and I have to know that you're in school. And it doesn't matter that you got an A in a class and cut 3 times your class. You have to go to school. Yeah. Maybe you could have got an A+. That's what he would say. So, and he was right. Thinking back, he was so right. I mean, to do what he did, the way that he raised me and us, although my brother was, you know, he was younger than me, so I'm sure that they were tired of that whole stern thing. So they were more lax with him.
It always is.
But I'm happy that they did the way that they raised me the way that they did.
Yeah. I feel the same way about my parents when I look back on stuff that they did. They were very, very strict in some areas and pretty hardcore in some. And now it's kind of bit them in the ass a little bit because I was quite combative throughout my life. And I was like, well, you guys trained me in this to stand up for myself and fight for myself. So going back to, so you, Catholic school, public school, once you start into young adulthood, teenage years, what were you interested in at that time? And kind of walk me through high school up to college. What did you think you wanted to do throughout life?
So the first thing I thought I wanted to do was I wanted to be a translator at the UN, the United Nations.
Wow.
Yeah. Because I love foreign language. I used to speak 4 languages fluently, but I don't anymore because I don't use those languages. Yeah. And so I went to school for French and I spoke Italian because that's my heritage. Yeah. And I learned that by being in Italy for 6 weeks with my grandmother. And then I taught myself how, this was after I was already a young adult, but I taught myself how to read and write in Greek. Yeah, it's crazy. And of course, English. So I thought when I was in high school that I was going to be a translator for the UN. But I didn't do as well as I should have done on my French regents. So that didn't happen. But I also had a passion. I wanted to be a makeup artist. So during graduation, my other grandmother said, is that really what you want to do? And I said, yes, that's what I want to do. Okay, I'll pay for your tuition. So she paid for my tuition. It was a very prestigious school in Manhattan. I went for about 1.5 years. But that industry is not your typical blue collar 9 to 5. And I came from a family of you have to have a job 9 to 5. And so my mother talked me into getting a real job. So I went into banking, which is a big joke, but because that's not me at all.
I don't see you as a banker at all.
No, well, this was a factor. It's a commercial factor. There are people that do credit check and risk. And how I got this job, my grandmother that lived in Manhattan called me one day and said, she knew that I was looking for a job. The bank, the Manufacturers Hanover Bank on 86th Street has a sign in the window. They're hiring. You should apply for the job. Nice girls work at banks.
Who said this?
My grandmother. Nice girls work at banks. So I said, okay, Grandma, because I loved my grandma. I would do anything she asked me. So I went into Manhattan. She goes, I'll go with you. So she took me on. We walked into the bank. And I said, I'm here to apply for a job. And he said, what kind of a job? And I said, I'm not sure. Maybe a file clerk. I don't have any experience. So he said, my friend is the manager of human resources, but you have to go to the Park Avenue location. So we went over there, took the bus, me and Grandma, went on the bus, Park Avenue. We sat, waited. I had my interview. And the woman who was the hiring person, or HR manager, said, I have a position open at our commercial factoring division on 6th Avenue. Typically, we would want someone with some experience, but you speak very well and you articulate very well, and that's needed in this role. So I'm going to send you over to meet with the HR person there. So I said, okay, Grandma, we have to go to 6th Avenue. Another place? I said, yes, Grandma. So we went. I said, but you can't come in with me. You have to stay here downstairs. So I went upstairs, 2-hour interview, come back down, Grandma's frantics, thinking something happened to me. I got hired. Wow. So that's the joke. Grandma laid the path. So from there, it was a customer service. It was right up my alley. So I love dealing with I was offered a position by one of the clients in the garment district in Manhattan, working in fashion. My first experience working in fashion in the showroom. They told me they were going to train me to show the line, but instead they bait and switch. They made me be the receptionist / file clerk. And they had, I'm not kidding, 4 feet worth of filing that had to be done that nobody did, probably because they left because it was such a crazy environment. And I didn't like that. Like, I am not a sit and file. I like the customer interaction. I mean, I'll do, work, like paperwork and things like that, but I must have a customer interaction. And so I left that position after like a month and a half and went back to the bank, where the vice president of the collections department, when I would visit a friend that was still working there, he would always, if he was walking by, say, "You need to come work for me. Go apply. I want you. Come work for me." And that was a very difficult position to get. He did not offer positions to people. So my friend talked me into applying for the job. I applied for the job and I got the job. And I worked for this man who was incredible. He was a tyrant, but he and I got along like hamburger and French fries. We were like, I don't know. I just kind of loved working under him. He trained me. He taught me. I just liked doing the best job that I could possibly do. So I was there for several years, but the pressure got too much.
How old were you when you got that job?
Trying to think. Let's see. That was probably in 1984. Yeah. So 1984, 85.
Yeah.
How old was I?
Yeah.
No, I have to tell my age. I'm kidding. I don't mind. How old was I? I was probably I was probably 20.
Yeah, so young. Yeah. And you say he was a tyrant. What do you remember? Like, could you give examples of what was his tyranny?
Oh, he just wanted answers. Like, you had to be 2 steps ahead of him. I can remember him walking up to someone and just, wanting an answer and just being just.
Would he yell?
Yes. He yelled to the man under him, the supervisor, a lot. Oh, a lot. And people knew that he was unforgiving for being absent or late. Like, you could never be absent or late. You had to have the numbers. I mean, it was collections. And commercial collections. So if somebody owed $5,000, you had to know, it had to be collected before he asked you about it, or he was just very demanding. But we got along, like, famously, almost to the point where people hated me there because they thought I was his pet. But I wasn't his pet. I was performing way above because I loved doing the job.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, so that job, and plus it got so expensive to travel into Manhattan. I mean, and he would give me raises every 3 months, I can remember. Every 3 months.
Wow.
But the raises were like 2%, and it still wasn't enough money. I mean, I was like, when I got that job, I remember when I first started at the bank, I actually needed, in New York, they call them working papers. If you were under like 17, you needed working papers to work.
Yeah.
That's funny. People laugh now, my friends. They just like roll working papers. That's so funny. But I even had a curfew when I started that job.
Oh my gosh. You started young.
And my father, even from going because that school was only a year and a half, the cosmetic school. Mm-hmm. And I remember saying to my dad, can we just lift my curfew and I not have a curfew? Because it's embarrassing. My coworkers are 25 and 24 years old. I'm embarrassed. I said, but I'll promise I'll always let you know what I'm doing if I'm not coming right home. Yeah. And he said, okay. But that was so funny. I had a curfew. I had to be home by 10 o'clock and I wanted it lifted because, we were going out in New York City.
It's New York City. The life starts at 10 o'clock.
Right. So anyway, but so that part of like my boss, his name was Dan. I hated leaving. Like I thought he was the greatest boss that I had ever had. And they had hired another woman, I guess, to come along with a big client that they had landed. And this woman, I guess she was a little bit threatened by the business rapport that I had with my boss. And she made it really difficult for me. So I just didn't want the stress anymore.
Yeah.
So then I went to work for a company that was very close to where I lived. And I worked there. And from there, I moved to Atlanta.
Wow.
And that was when I was about 29.
And I read, when doing some research for this, you wrote, I think on LinkedIn, that the second most difficult and risky decision you made was starting Velu, but the first was moving from New York City to Atlanta.
Absolutely.
So walk me through that change. Why did you move? What sparked that?
Okay. So while I was working for this one company near my home, I was in customer service or inside sales, and I was in charge of the southern part of the United States. And I visited Dallas and I had visited Atlanta. And I wanted so badly to move out of my parents' home, but I wanted to live like Joan Rivers, you know? I did not want to live in a bad neighborhood, in a horrible apartment, and I did not want a roommate. So I never left my parents' home, and my father and mother never pushed me out.
Yeah.
I mean, thinking back now, if I met someone who was 29 still living with their parents, I would think there's something wrong. Like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah, I agree.
Right?
I agree. Yeah. I'm 29 now, so
yeah. Could you imagine living with your parents still?
All my hair would be gone, not just some of it.
So I met a friend who lived in Atlanta, and I had a friend who lived in Dallas, but he was getting married. So I thought, well, that's not going to work because he's not going to want to hang out with me. He's going to be with his new wife. So I thought, and I came to Atlanta on business, and we went to the Cracker Barrel for lunch, and there were those little pegboards on the table. And I said, they leave these on the table all the time? And they said, yeah. Are you kidding? In New York, they'd be stolen. And I knew right then, if you could leave on the table, I want to live here. I mean, that's crazy, but that's so funny.
Oh, that's
It's so true. And so with my friend, I told her I want to relocate to Atlanta. She says, well, you can live with me until you find a job. I said, okay. I tried to find a job by living in New York, but that didn't work. So one whole year, I paid off my car. I had only a few car payments left, and then I saved money, not much, maybe $2,000. And I drove, she helped me drive down to Atlanta. And that was hard. I'd never lived on my own. I'm not a risk. I never thought of myself as a risk taker. Mm-hmm. All of my family and friends lived in New York. I had nobody, just this one person. Mm. And $2,000 in my pocket and a paid-for Chrysler Laser. That's it. And I found a job. Her fiance's or boyfriend's aunt worked for a company that was looking for an inside salesperson, like in the industrial electronics space, but it was customer service, and that's where my expertise was. And they hired me, and I worked there for about 7 years, and then a competitor hired me, and I worked for that company for 16 years. And that's while I was working my business, I still worked for that company because I was always on the road. So I was able to work a full day at my job and then some hours every day calling on stores.
Yeah. Wow, though, 29, that is a massive life change.
It was massive life
that you had to change. So it started from, I want to move out of my parents' house, which I think is very understandable. But you moved far away. It's not close. It's not like you went to Pennsylvania or New Jersey or somewhere like that. I mean, you moved to the South. Few questions. How did your family feel about that? Because you're very close to them.
my mother was sad, but she understood. And plus, I was very bored. I was living at home. I didn't want to go with my friends sitting on the same bar stool that we sat in when we were 18. It was boring to me. I wanted more. I knew it, but I couldn't afford more. Like the more that I wanted, I couldn't afford.
Yeah.
And back in 1992, which is when I moved to Atlanta, that was before the Olympics, and the cost of living was a quarter of what it was. Like my car insurance for a whole year was $200 in Atlanta. Dang. In New York, it was $1,200. Oh. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And so my mother, she was sad, but she understood. My father didn't believe me. He kept saying, "What's that?" Like in my room, "What's that bag? What are these bags?" I said, "I told you, I'm moving." Oh, okay. And finally, when everything was packed up, I had the A bags, meaning must bring with me, like in the car.
Yeah.
The B bags, that's if there's more room. And the C bags is I'm going to get rid of it if it doesn't finally fit. Because everything I owned, I packed in the Chrysler Laser.
Yeah.
And so finally, he was like, "What are you talking about? You're moving." And he said to my mother, "Do you hear this?" And she said, "Yeah, she's been telling you this for almost a year that she's moving." "Where are you moving?" "Moving to Atlanta." "Atlanta, Georgia?" "With who?" "Myself." "Yourself? Do you have a job?" "No." "You don't have a job?" I said, "No, I have $2,000. I'm going to get a job." "You're leaving your job with no job and no people and living with a person?" And I said, "Yes." And I said, "If it doesn't work out, can I come back?" And he said, "Yeah, you could come back." I remember that. And that was it, you know? So my other family, my grandmother crying, she thought that I was just moving over the bridge. She didn't realize it was like 12 hours away. Everybody, you know, crying, but happy for me.
Did you feel any type of sadness then? It was more of excited anticipation, like I'm ready.
I felt exhilarated, I'm ready. And a month later, after I got to Atlanta, I started to feel sad. And when I called people, they'd already gotten over their sadness. My friends, my family, they weren't sad anymore, and I was sad. So I had to kind of get over that.
Yeah.
And I had no friends, really. And my friend told me, "You should join these groups." Similar to, it was networking, but it was more support. It's called Women in Electronics. It was a great organization. Women, mostly like, let's say if I was 29, they were probably 40, 35. It was a great group. I was with them for years and years and years, was on their board, held leadership positions. They helped my personal growth as well.
In movies, TV shows, books, in real life, there are decisions that we make that shape our lives. Do you feel like this move to Atlanta was one that, because you said that you were the nice girl and that you were always a people pleaser. This was not a people pleasing decision. This was for you because people didn't want you to do that. Looking back, do you think that was a catalyst to shift kind of your personality even more into who you are today?
Yes. I don't know what my life would have been like if I would have stayed where I was, because I wouldn't have been able to afford to live anywhere that I wanted to live. And so I think being on my own is what I needed to be in order to experience life. For a year and a half, maybe 2 years, I was the third wheel in my parents' relationship. I went anytime they went out to dinner, I asked if I could go, or they invited me. Movies, I was there. I was always there. I mean, that was a good thing. I liked it, but I didn't need to be there. I needed to be on my own.
It's almost holding you back.
Yeah. But my grandmother, you know, girls don't move out of their house until they're married.
That was her mindset and philosophy.
Oh, yes. You go from your parents' home to your married home. No living by yourself.
Is your grandmother born in Italy?
Yes.
What part?
Sicily.
Yeah. Yeah. My grandmother, she's Albanian, but when they left the communist regime, they went to Italy. My grandma also spoke multiple languages too. But that just the way you're describing your grandmother is like you're describing mine.
Yeah, she just, no way. And that's why, no way. She just did not believe in that at all.
Yeah. And let me ask you this. If even when you move out, did she still want you to live close by?
Oh, yeah. She didn't want me to leave.
My grandma called me. She's like, well, you could get a home near your parents and then I could get a home near that one. We all live in the same street. And I said, no, nothing.
Yeah, she just did not understand. She didn't want it. She said she's going to kick the bucket, never see me again. Her words, quote.
Oh my God.
I'm going to kick the bucket and I'll never see you again.
The guilty grandma.
So grandma, I called her every day, sometimes twice a day.
You're being a good granddaughter. That's what you.
I loved her. She was fun and just, I don't know. How could you not love your grandmother? I guess if she's not a good grandma, right? But
yeah,
my grandmother was a great grandma.
Yeah, you were blessed to have that.
Blessed.
So you're in Atlanta. You're here. First few months, you're sad, you're lonely, you're trying to figure it out. But honestly, probably a good thing. It forced you to get out and do other things. So keep walking me through from there. So you're 29, 30.
Yep. I moved from New York City to Conyers, Georgia in 1992.
Oh my God.
And if you know Conyers, Georgia in 1992, it's crazy.
Was there anything there?
Highway 138, excuse me. There was one Greek pizza place, restaurant. There was no. To answer your question, there was nothing there.
Yeah.
Hardly anything there. And I remember calling for pizza. I was going to go get pizza and I said, I want to order a large pie. And the guy said, a pie? What kind of pie? And I said, cheese. He said, oh, you mean a pizza pie? I said, yes. He said, oh, you must be from New York. They didn't say that,
no.
And people ate I remember watching people eating their pizza with a fork and a knife, not folding the slice.
I don't support that, by the way. Fork and a knife pizza? No.
You eat it with your hands.
No, I don't support that at all.
But no, there was nothing. And I was very bored. Luckily, I made a very, very good friend at my job. And she and I did a lot of things together. We went to the Duluth Festival. We went to South Georgia to the Cotton Picking Festival. We did a lot of shopping and things like that. So that was good. But, just different things, going out to eat and things like that. But I then moved, a bad decision, moved to Snellville. And that was holy cow.
Yeah.
Snellville's, back then there was a sign that says Snellville where everybody is somebody or something like that. I don't know. It was horrible. That was when Ronald Reagan Parkway was just finished.
Yeah.
So I was able to drive, because my job was in Tucker, so I was able to drive or Norcross Tucker, I was able to drive from Snellville on Ronald Reagan, to get to work. But that was bad. I was in a bad relationship. So I left Snellville, met some new friends at my job who were city slicker people that had, moved to Georgia. And they were like, you've never been here. You've never been there. You've never done that. I was like, no, what's that? What's that? Oh, you got to do this. So I moved to my first own apartment in Buckhead.
Oh.
We were driving down Peachtree Road and I saw this sign that said brand new apartments, ready soon or something like that. And they were gorgeous. They were on Peachtree Road. And I said, turn around. Let's go over there. So we went there. It was like the lap of luxury, I'm telling you. So I moved from Snellville to Buckhead and loved it.
It was your dream.
Best time of my life. Oh, well, obviously before, up till that point.
Yeah.
Best time in my whole life. I loved that apartment. Then I got talked into moving in with a roommate, leaving my apartment, and I was miserable. That was in Midtown. Miserable. 6 months lasted there, moved back to the same apartment. The people were ready to move out because I went to the apartment. I said, are there any other apartments here available? well, the one that you used to live in is coming available in a week.
Wow.
I was like, what? So I moved back. And then that apartment complex went condo, and I wasn't in a position to buy. Plus, it was a 1-bedroom. I didn't want to buy that. That's when in Atlanta, condo. Everything was condo. All apartments were turning condo. They were being renovated to become condos, new buildings. So I moved to Dunwoody in an apartment with a goal that I would buy a condo in a year. Like, I always gave myself a year. I don't know why I planned it, because I figured I could put money in a jar, to do things. And that's what I did. I found a brand new condo complex in Dunwoody, Georgia, and everything was perfect. When I walked into the trailer, the sales trailer, I knew that that was the place. I had seen others, but I knew. I just felt it. I was like, this is it. So I put a down payment, told my mother. She thought I was insane. How could you buy something sight unseen? They could be criminals, like just taking your money and moving that trailer onto the next project. I'm like, no, this is real. But she was kind of right. How did I know? I didn't do any due diligence. And then I had my condo, and my husband teases me because when we're with people, I always preface a lot of my stories by when I had my condo in Dunwoody, or whatever. But that was another great place where I found new lifelong friends, new friends that are in my life still. And that was back, I moved in there in 2001.
So what were you doing for work throughout this time?
I was still working as a field sales representative for an industrial electronics or an electrical distributor, calling on companies that manufactured machinery, industrial controls, electrical panels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you, at that point, were you kind of dissatisfied with work and more enjoying your personal life? Which one was kind of the driving factor of life at that point?
I had a very, very good job, meaning it was, it paid very well. I felt appreciated. I think the driving factor back then was my social life.
Yeah.
For sure. I was a single person. I was in my condo in Dunwoody. It was all mine. I loved it. I had friends that were single. All my friends, never been married, no children. And this is at the age of like 28 years old. 28? No. 35. I don't even know. Time has gone so far. 35. Yeah. So like if it was 2001, I'm thinking that it was like 37, 36.
Yeah.
Great time in my life. Fun, having just fun. No stress, nothing.
It almost sounds like you kind of got to do what you wanted to do in your 20s in New York City, but here in Atlanta.
Yes, it's true.
Yeah.
I really, and the cost of living was still pretty low in Atlanta considering, just everything. And it was just safe. Like I felt safe. That was a big part of why I didn't want to move out from my parents' home too, because safety. I didn't want to move to a neighborhood or a city that was not safe. What was I going to do? Come home and be scared?
Yeah. You don't want that.
No.
So you were at that company in Atlanta for 7 years.
Yes. I was with the first company for about 7 years, the second company for 16 years until I left to go full 100% with Velu Style.
Wow. Okay.
Another big risk.
A huge risk. Okay. So we just hit a quick bathroom break. We're going back to when you were at the second company in Atlanta that you were at for 16 years. Yes. So 16 years is a long time. So you obviously, there were good parts of it, but kind of walk me through that journey.
So the company, and actually 16 years was in total because that company acquired the company that I had worked for. So it was a a public company buying a privately held company. So totally different. The whole corporate vibe, completely night and day. Where you could pick up the phone and call the president of the company, you no longer could do that anymore. So, but it was still in the same role in outside sales. And then I had gotten a promotion to a regional manager for business development. So I had a team, and that was a little stressful because my boss at the time created these positions, these regional development manager positions, without approval from his boss. I'm not sure what he was thinking, to be quite honest. But so we all kind of were in these roles, and then he wound up getting let go, and I stayed in that role until I left the company. And so the good part about it is that I personally was not required to visit poultry processing plants and steel mills and all these wood plants. But the team that was under me was responsible, and I was just making sure that our global account contracts were implemented. Mm-hmm. So the job was actually, it was a good job. It taught me a lot, but it was very political. Like, I mean, it was unbelievable how people were really backstabbing everybody. I just didn't, I did it because it was a fantastic paying job. I mean, a fantastic job.
Yeah.
But once I started my business, which was in 2005, and got a taste of that, that's what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And I knew what I had to sacrifice. I needed to stay there in my job for several years while I built the business, because there was no way that I could leave my job. I mean, at this point, I had moved from my condo into a townhome, and I needed that stability. Mm-hmm. And then finally, I had just had enough. I thought, I can't build my business, grow it anymore, and I really am miserable. When you get up in the morning and you put your feet on the floor from the bed and you look at your shoes and you go, I can't do this.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it anymore. I was traveling 4 days a week, both air and car. I was never home. And it was just so, like, the places that I had to be with these people was just miserable.
Sounds draining.
Oh, it was very draining.
Yeah. I want to hone in on when you said in 2005 you had the idea for the business. I've been around business owners and entrepreneurs my whole life. And my first podcast was about entrepreneurship and business, where the misconception people have is that it's idea execution. And it is never, ever that at all. Mm-mm. It is an inkling. It is a thought. It is a concept. And then it slowly morphs over time, almost kind of like a baby growing, like a child and a human.
And I was on a sales call, and I sold $1,500 worth of jewelry, and I was getting commission.
This is early 2000s?
Yes, this was in 2004.
Because that's a lot of money now. So 20 years ago, yeah.
$1,500 was the sales order. It was a big order for me. I was very excited.
Yeah.
And I get 15% was my commission on that order. But I thought, if I owned the company, I would be making a lot more than 15%. And I really love this. I love going and seeing customers, but I need a product to sell. What can I do? And so I went to the woman who had that I was her rep, and I said, look, I really want to start my own business, but I don't want to compete with you. How do I do this? Oh, I'm so happy for you, which is like a blessing too. Most people would have just said, get lost, goodbye. I'm so happy for you. let me help you. What do you want to do? You should do natural stone jewelry. That's really big right now. I'll help you find suppliers. And that's how it started. She mentored me. She told me the do's and the don'ts. Do this. And if I would say, but what if then you don't do it? I'm like, no, you do this. You must have this. But what if, no. If it's a what if, again, you don't do it. Okay. So I listened to her like a little soldier. I listened. I contacted all these like potential factories that made natural stone jewelry. And that's how it started. And then I was still she said, but you'll still sell my line too when you're on the road. And I said, sure. Because then I could still sell both. And then finally, she got bigger and she went in with a real rep down at America's Mart. So I only had my business.
Yeah. What was her name?
Betty.
Shout out, Betty.
Betty. I love you, Betty.
Betty, we appreciate and we love you. That's... Well, that just speaks to Betty was an amazing mentor for you.
And she's still we're still great friends.
Wow.
And she still gives me ideas.
You'll have to send her this interview. Let her know.
I'm going
she was
to.
talked all about.
Absolutely, I will.
So you're building this, you're learning from Betty, you're making mistakes, you still have the money coming in from the other job that you're working. How long were you doing both?
From 2005 through 2014.
Wow.
It was an 80-hour week every week.
I was just going to ask, how did you manage this?
It was, I didn't find what my business was work because I loved it. Mm-hmm. I just balanced it. I took every hour of vacation to do trade shows.
Wow.
I never went on vacation, like a vacation. It was always, okay, I'm going to take 3 days vacation and do this trade show. I'm going to take a week's vacation and go to Vegas and do that trade show. Always.
Were you in a relationship at that time with anyone?
Yes, I was married.
Okay. Because I kind of see this from two sides. One is you dedicated the time. And this is another big point that I always talk about with people. I have the recipe for success for everybody. It's called go all in and disregard pretty much everything else in your life. And that's not healthy nor a good thing. Can we talk about that a little bit? What impact did that have on your relationship?
Well, let's see. When I was doing both, because I had gotten married in 2004.
In Atlanta?
In Atlanta.
Did you meet here?
Yes.
Okay.
So we got married in 2004 and my business started in 2005 and I was all in and he was basically, it didn't matter to him because at that time he didn't want to work anymore. And so I utilized his being to ship my orders while I was traveling.
What do you mean utilize his being?
I'm being facetious. Because he didn't work. And he was staying at home, whatever, trying to find himself. I said, okay, great. You're going to ship these orders.
You're going to work for me. Yeah.
You're going to work for me.
Yeah.
For nothing. And you're going to ship these orders. Pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, and that was a sacrifice that I was willing to take. How else was I going to do it?
Yeah.
I could not have shipped orders. Also, not only it was very difficult for me to promote my business while I had this very demanding job. So I hired a rep.
Yeah.
And I was in their showroom and she sold for me and he shipped the orders and I contacted the customers. Thank you so much. I appreciate your business. Nobody knew that my rep knew that I had a full-time job, but nobody else knew that I had a full-time job.
Didn't matter.
No.
Getting the job done.
Yeah. And then I expanded into women's apparel in 2013 or 14. And that's when I realized I need to leave my job.
Leave the company.
And leave my marriage.
Wow. Okay, so those are two heavy, heavy decisions. So you guys were together. Let's talk about the marriage one first, because I think it's all intertwined.
Actually, my marriage was over by 2010. But I was just utilizing somebody to ship orders. And then they moved out. And because the economy went, phew, didn't want to sell the house.
Yeah.
So I stayed there by myself, until everything was finalized in like 2013 or so, 14. And then I had met, luckily for me, not planning, met the love of my life by accident. And I'm married now to him. So
thank goodness. And that's how it goes.
Well, I feel that God put all of those stepping stones, like he said, this is where you're going to go. Boop, 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 boop. And I'm Italian and I talk with my hands, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay.
And
let's adjust that just a little.
Oh, thank you. And he said, you're going to traipse through a lot of mud, but when you get over that mud and you get yourself together, like you can't keep living like this, nothing in harmony. If you can fix your house, I will bless you more than you will ever believe. I remember hearing that in my head. And the rest, I'm happy as a clam now.
I really appreciate you sharing that and being open, because another misconception that I think people have about running and owning a business is that life is great everywhere else. And majority of the people that I've talked to have something really rough going on outside of that. And being in a difficult relationship is one of the hardest things you can ever deal with, because when you don't feel, and I don't want to use the word safe improperly, was work a saving grace for you that you were able to throw yourself into? And also, okay, so yes, for people listening, she's nodding. And to follow up to that, for people that are maybe trying to start a business and are dealing with problems at home in the relationship, how the hell do you balance that? And what do you do? What would you recommend to people?
I think the fact that I traveled so much for my corporate job was my escape. So I wasn't home. And if I felt super stressed, I would just schedule a business trip to be out. I mean, productive business trip, but a business trip from the company I worked for. The weekends, I mean, I really did not look forward to coming home. Yeah. I really did not during the worst times of it, just because I was resentful too, because here it is, I'm working my business and this company, and you're running my business by shipping. I'm not where I need to be. I'm not in Atlanta like every day visiting my customers, and I couldn't do it, and I was resentful. And I just, you know what? I don't have an answer as really how I dealt with it. I just did. I'm trying to recall. I don't remember. I just did for as long as I possibly could do it.
That is the answer. You endured.
Yep. I guess that's true. And when my company I worked for started messing around with bonus programs with everybody once too much, I thought, what am I doing? I can't give any more to the company because I've done everything they've asked and they're not holding up their end of the bargain. It's time to leave. I wanted to leave in 2008, my job, but I wasn't where I needed to be.
You wanted to leave the company and the marriage at the same time? You wanted to leave both?
No, just the company.
Just the company.
Yeah.
Okay. How long into the marriage did it start to get challenging to that point where you're like, okay, I'm going to push myself more into work?
I'll be embarrassed to tell you this, but probably a year.
I don't think that's embarrassing.
Yeah, it was a year.
It happens with a lot of people.
I was too embarrassed to tell my family, because everybody had come down to Atlanta and spent all this money. And, I didn't get married until I was 40.
Yeah.
I never wanted to be married.
Yeah.
Not that I didn't like marriage. I'm independent, and I like to do my own thing. Not now. Now I'm like so happy. But that wasn't the right situation back then, but now it is.
You mentioned the word resentment. The past few years have been a journey of healing for me for a multitude of things. I've really struggled with resentment throughout my life. I've struggled with grudges and anger. It's been a big challenge for me my entire life. And this last year, I've worked through quite a few grudges. Did you have that in your relationship?
Yeah, total resentment. I was so angry.
Yeah. How long did that last for?
The whole time. And it got more and more. It never, it grew. The anger and resentment grew and grew and grew. Because here you are, sir, living the life of Riley, drinking the finest wines, going on what for me was work. For you, it was a vacation. You know, never having to want for anything. And me, I'm like stressed to the max. I'm like my head to blow off because I'm trying to get to the next level in my business. I'm trying to pacify my boss. I'm trying to do everything. It was crazy.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
That's okay. It's a lot to handle.
Yeah. But I knew, people say that when you're in emotional turmoil, don't make financial decisions. So should I have left my job and just left my marriage? I don't know. But it had to be.
Yeah. So walk me through that. So fast forward to 2014. I mean, was it literally like the same couple months, weeks? How long? So you leave your job to Velu's up to a point where it can sustain itself. How long in between did you leave both job and marriage?
Oh, like immediately, almost the same week.
Oh my goodness. You were ready.
I was ready, not thinking things through at all, but I was ready.
Yeah.
I mean, my business wasn't really where it needed to be. I took a tremendous pay cut because I didn't have that salary coming in, but I didn't care. Like, honestly, I probably wasn't thinking it through, but I didn't care because I knew all of my focus and energy could be put into my business and I could grow it. And I don't have to put my energy into my job and then get kicked in the knees when it's time to get bonus.
Yeah. How, you don't have to give specific numbers, but what percentage pay cut do you think you took from leaving your job to go to Velu? How much less did you start making each month?
Month, I can't tell you, but annually, I would say it was like 60% less, 70% less.
It's a lot.
Yeah. But I didn't care. I honestly didn't care because I thought I'm only on the up. I'm going up. So it didn't matter.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that again because it's easy to hear, people say stuff all the time. Yeah, I took a pay cut. Yeah, I did this. So take that number 60%. If you're making 100 grand, immediately you made 40 grand the next year. That is a massive change in lifestyle, in security. I mean, it's a massive, massive risk that you took. And also undergoing extreme emotional turmoil at that time. And it was challenging. You're tough, Veronica. You're tough.
I don't know. Thank you. Sometimes I wonder, am I? I guess so. You know what it is? I've always heard certain people say, never fall on the sword. Never fall on the sword. You fight until you think it's right to leave, not because you've given up. There's a difference. You think it's knowing when to exit and exiting because you're forced to exit is totally two different things.
Absolutely.
And emotionally, it's totally two different things.
One's empowering, one can be debilitating.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I just always, my friend used to say, oh, if it's not working, shut it down. No, that's giving up. Find a different way, analyze what's not working. Listen, I have made over the last 2 years, very bad business decisions. And I've had a really hard time like, what's the word I'm looking for? Forgiving myself.
Oh, yeah.
Really hard, because it's been really hard, but I'm getting better. And that's what is so important to people. Everybody's going to make decisions. You're going to bad decisions or good decisions, big ones, little ones, things that can be devastating to your business. But it's all about how you just get back up and just forge ahead. I'm a big follower. When I say big follower, it means I read his blogs and posts and stories every day. Mr. Jesse Etzler. Love him. He's failed. He talks about his stories. I would love to know, how did he forgive himself? Look at where he is now. He's on the top of his game every day. He's on the top of the world from my view for what he's done. So I'm like trying to be that person where I just continue on and find ways to make it work. Like if you've taken some steps backwards, okay, so you need to just do this, whatever this is, to like get through that, but still, forge ahead. Have a plan.
Yeah. You've come a long way from the nice girl in New York City.
Oh my gosh. I don't even know who that girl is. I'm still a nice person, but I'm more, no, you're not going to treat me that way. Or no, you're not going to talk to me that way. Like that's me now. Or you're not going to make me feel bad. Or, in a kind way. What you said didn't sit well with me. Kind of made me feel bad.
You're still the nice person that will stand up for herself and set boundaries.
Yes, that's very true.
And I think that's part of maturing. That's part of adulthood and growing and making those mistakes.
And, realizing, and my husband is so wise, he always says there's no friends in business. And what he really means is that don't be so willing to think that everybody is out for your best interest, because they're not.
Your husband said this now?
Oh, yeah. He tells me
damn
this.
Right.
He is so smart. And I think that a big part of where I've come, like how far I've come, are from things that he's taught me, being a numbers guy, being just very wise and very just savvy.
Yeah.
And so I just think that I've had people take advantage of me in business not too long ago, and really where I was shocked and stunned and hurt, like all those feelings all in one ball, that happened to me. But and how do you forgive yourself for letting people take advantage of you like that?
Yeah.
But you just have to say, I didn't do anything wrong. Why do I feel bad? They should feel bad. That's really gotten me through.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that, when you say getting taken advantage of, is that something that's happened in the last 2 years?
Oh, yes, definitely.
It's painful. I too have had that happen to me.
And 4 years ago, from 4 years to present.
Let me ask you this. Does it make you feel, I felt, when it happened to me, I felt naive.
Yes.
I felt like,
very naive.
And stupid isn't the right word, but it was like, dude, what are you doing? How could you be so blind?
Right. Exactly.
And then you're mad at yourself because you're like, I've gotten all this way to still be this naive. Am I cut out for this?
Well, I always thought, how did I let that? You saw that was like there were red flags going up all over you, around you. Why did you not pay attention? Yeah.
Money.
Opportunity, money.
And the belief that it'll be okay. I'll work through this. We'll get through this. I can fix this. I see a red flag, but there's red flags here and there.
But they're really not doing anything to me. They really want me to succeed. They really want to help me. No, they don't. They just want your money. They don't. But it's okay, because now I've really just the more I say to myself, you didn't do anything wrong. It's not your fault that someone mistreated you or took advantage of you. That it's not my fault they did that. Learn from that.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Just learning.
It is, and I don't want to use this word in the wrong way, but it is it is someone abusing your relationship.
Yep.
It is taking advantage of someone and a trusting relationship, and that's difficult because I would imagine, I'm going to make an inference that you knew that person pretty well. It's probably a good relationship.
Yeah, pretty well. The first time it happened, it was pretty well, and it was a very like taking me under their wing kind of relationship.
I don't mean to laugh at that. I'm only laughing because
I'm laughing.
I know what you're saying there.
Taking me under their wing, but then like it was just bad. You know, Mark Cuban is also someone that I hear what he says. You know, you talk about when things go wrong or awry and you have to like get up and dust off your bootstraps or whatever they call that. He says when your back is against the wall, you sell, right? Yes. And that's how like survival in my business is like listening to that. You don't worry about what has happened yesterday or behind you. You just sell. That's where businesses grow, selling. Mm-hmm. And I've got that skill.
Yeah.
And I can help people. So.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. So I know we kind of went off on a tangent there.
That's
but
okay.
Yeah. Jumping back to the story, you leave the company, you get a divorce, you take this 50 to 60% pay cut. What happens from there?
I'm 110% in my business.
Yeah.
I'm working it. I'm selling. I'm working in the showroom. I don't have all that stress about, you know, that I have to be in two places at one time and a conference call during a trade show. That's all gone.
Yeah.
I am feeling so good. I am so happy. Like I am so happy. And then, you know, I met my husband and I was able to date long distance because I didn't have the corporate, responsibility. And I was able to visit customers while I visited him where he was from. And so,
was he not in Atlanta?
No, he was from Kansas City.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah. And we met on LinkedIn.
It might even be a little better that it was long distance while you were getting the business started.
Yes and no. I remember how sad it was being away from each other. But I also, like you said, I had lots of responsibilities that I had to attend to for my business here.
Well, because me and my wife, when we met, we dated long distance for the first 2.5 years, and Force Media was 1.5 years old. And I really needed that time.
Yeah.
I really needed that time to focus. So when I look back on it, that was pivotal for me to get the time that I needed. So I remember you said you guys met on LinkedIn. So you're building and growing and running your business. Let me ask you this, because you're excellent at networking. You're excellent at sales. If there's something I wish I would have done earlier in my business, it was networking. Can you speak on kind of the tactics you use to grow and sell your business?
Cold calls were a tremendous part of building my business. In-person cold calling, not on the phone.
And this is post 2014.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. So that's still.
Luckily, I was in a showroom where the ducks were coming. You know, like the trade shows, the customers were coming. I would introduce myself, try to introduce my brand. I had tons of competition. It was tons of competition. So I really needed to stick out. And I thought the way that I would stick out is by showing people who I was. And that's it. But cold calling, walking into a boutique, not trying to sell them, just explaining who I was and asking for an appointment.
Yeah.
That's the way.
Do you struggle with fear? Like this, cause I'm not sensing that. Is fear something that grips you?
No, usually
like
not. I'm afraid of heights. Like I don't want to jump out of a plane.
I
don't want to go
logical.
on rides at an amusement park. I don't like that. But not fear of going up to someone that I don't know. I've never been afraid ever since I was a little kid. I would go up to people I didn't know, which was really bad. I would, as a little kid, because, you know, people are not all nice.
Yeah.
I would ask questions always. Hi, do you want to know my name? Do you want to know how old my mommy is? Do you want, just like no fear. My mother didn't like that very much.
No, not at all.
But Yeah. And no, I'm not afraid. Yeah. Like, that's why I had to, like, you have to not worry so much about what other people think. Mm-hmm. If you do that, that's going to really stifle your growth. If you're always worried about, oh, what are they going to think? Or what are they going to think? I want to do this, but what are they going to think? No, don't worry about that.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, it's interesting you say that. I've thought a lot about this in society. People don't think about us as much as we think they think about us.
True.
They don't.
Nope.
And occasionally you'll be wrong and people will come after you.
Yep.
That is for sure. A lot of celebrities deal with that, internet personalities. But for the most part, no one's paying attention.
I know.
We're dealing with our own shit.
Yep, exactly. You know, it's funny when you talk about fear, you know, I fear that sometimes I won't stand up to how I want to be perceived. Meaning, I'm all about customer service, and the last year has been a real issue for me in business because of a mistake I made a year ago. It has really kept me from the feeling of being able to deliver above and beyond. And I'm trying to forgive myself. And that's a hard thing. That's a hard thing to swallow when you feel like you've disappointed people.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't want to disappoint anybody. Like, I want to be the person that they come to, that they can rely on. So I've sort of had to backtrack on that because of a mistake I made a year ago.
Yeah. Are you able to share details of that, or we don't have to get into it if it's going to hurt business relationship?
No. Just, you know, when you try and grow, this is what I want to tell business owners too. Yeah. You have a plan. You should stick to that plan, a business plan. And when you find opportunities that you feel are going to grow your business to new heights, so to speak, you really need to step back and evaluate that and the pros and the cons. And that's something that I did not do. And that's why I made mistakes not being able to keep up with the new demand. That's where I never expected that to happen, because the decision that I was about to make was going to help me. But in reality, it was detrimental.
You bit off more than you could chew.
Only because the person that I was depending on, the company that I was depending upon, fell flat on their face. Oof. And that hurt me.
Yeah.
So it was my fault that I chose them, but it was their fault that they were not on the up and up.
So at kind of a high level, there was a relationship you had that you secured that was going to be fulfilling more work. You had another partner that could help fulfill it for you. They fell flat on their face. You were no longer able to fulfill that. The customer was very unhappy.
Very
and you're
unhappy.
Paying for it.
Customers, salespeople that were working with for me. It was just a domino effect.
It blew up.
It blew up.
Yeah, it blew up, and there's ramifications for a long time to come. Yeah.
But you know, I'm looking at it as that was a total learning experience. And why did I make the decision? What would have happened? It would have been like amazing. That's why I took the chance. That's why I made the decision.
You got to take risks.
And I've trusted somebody that, you know, okay. Yeah. I think everybody has done that at one point. It's just, you know, how do you recover from that? And that's what I've been doing. I've been recovering.
Well, it's also the concept of, I don't know unless I do try. You know, if you only take safe steps, then you're probably going to have safe outcomes.
Yep. And I did something that I'm very excited about. I started a retail division under House of Trendz Boutique, which is wonderful. It's performing well. It doesn't need a lot of my day-to-day managing because I'm inside of another business who is managing the business for me. Mm-hmm. And I'm really happy because now I'm also able to support consumers, but under a different, like not just Velu brand, all brands. So it's like, it's a boutique. It's a retail boutique. So I'm so happy about that.
Good. Good. If you could give advice to other people that are in this industry or trying to break into this industry, what would you tell them with all your years of experience?
Well, definitely have a business plan. Know who your customer is before you start spending a bunch of money on product. Know your numbers. What is the cost, the margin? Is it sustainable? Is the product that you are wanting to sell seasonal? Don't leave your day job without having money coming in. I mean, it should be a year at least. It should, people say, like, if you want to open a card store, you should work in a card store for 6 months to understand the business. I agree with that concept. You should really work for someone or work in that industry first. And just basically the plan, don't let anybody steer you off of your plan. This is your plan. One of our members at BNI, our fellow members, he told me, and this stuck in my head too. He said, we were just having a conversation, and he goes, well, I don't make any business decision unless it's good for my business. And I thought, that seems so simple, but that is so straight on. Yeah. This is all about my business and the responsibility that I have for my business. I don't make a decision to go with something unless it's good for my business. And I thought, I'm going to say that out loud in my head every time I go to make another decision. Is this good for my business? It's pretty simple. Yes, no. If you don't know, then don't make the decision. Yeah. So I've learned a ton of that, like from people in business. So I think people should take that to heart. Do not, just because somebody says, oh, this is the best thing ever, and you're going to sell this like crazy. We can't, if that's not part of your business plan, that product, forget it. Say, thank you. I'm sure it is, but it's not right for my business.
Yeah. Knowing what to say yes to, but more importantly, knowing what to say no to.
Don't get bullied. Not every salesperson is out for your best interest. They're out to make a sale. And it doesn't matter. And sometimes people will try and sell you a dog just to move it. It's not always the best. If it fits in your plan, test it also. Don't go all in, tens of thousands of dollars. Just test it.
Yeah. Listen, I believe in being trusting, and I've talked to so many executives and business owners, trust but verify.
Yeah.
Trust but verify.
Absolutely.
And it never hurts to check in on things because people make mistakes. Life happens. People lose focus. They lose passion. They struggle. Everyone, have you heard the word sondering?
No, I have not.
I just learned this last week. And sondering is the concept that everybody else in the world has a life just as complex with depth and challenges and love as you do. And I think sometimes we go around society, this happens regularly. I see it a lot. Like if wait staff get mistreated or fast food workers and things like that, where it's like, well, you're doing this hourly job or you're doing this, and they look down upon them, where it's like, actually, man, you don't even know what these people are going through.
That's right.
In their life. And I found that. So I say all of that to say, in business, even if someone started off strong or with a positive intention, something could change in their life that causes them to lose focus. And it's your responsibility as the owner and leader to navigate the ship properly. And I say that because similar to you, I've made many mistakes over the years, and a couple this year where I'm like, I struggle even letting them go. It stings me inside and it stays with me. But the whole concept of forgiveness and self-love and forgiveness are two very powerful.
And some people will forgive, like if you disappoint, some people will forgive you and some people won't. And that's just, that's just the way. You got to take it as it comes, but don't beat yourself up where you become paralyzed and unable to move forward.
I completely agree. What would you say to 29-year-old Veronica that is moving to Atlanta? If you could go back in time, what would you tell her?
I would say plan more with like finances and with being more strategic and not so, flying by the seat of your pants. Like I've always flown by the seat of my pants. Even though I'm intentional in what I do, I feel that 29-year-old Veronica could have planned more and set more boundaries early on. Should have set more boundaries.
Yeah.
That's what I think, not waiting for another 10 or 15 years to learn how to set boundaries. Like I read a book, The Place of No, or something. I think that was the name of it. It was A Place of No. I forgot even who the author was. It might have been Bethany Frankel, but I don't remember. But it's okay to say no. Like you have to set boundaries. You can't be everything to or take on all this and then deliver nothing and then feel bad about it. So,
yeah,
boundary setting in business and in personal
goes a very long way.
Yes,
it can save you from a lot of challenges and heartache.
Yes,
throughout your life. Well, I'll tell you this: what I see, hearing and seeing your story, is a woman that has learned how to set boundaries now, has learned how to stand up for herself, and has gone after what she wants. From being in New York City, living with your parents, kind of not really happy with where you were in life, to making a massive life change, to working these jobs, being in a relationship you weren't happy with, but never giving up. And just so you know, like, I really thank you for coming on and sharing today, because that's the whole point of doing this show. Is I knew you before, but hearing the challenges you've gone through and just you endured. Like if I had to sum up this episode, like your ability to endure and keep on going is really inspiring. And thank you for doing that, because we're all going through stuff in our life. And I think being able to endure and go through hell and back is what shapes you, who you are today. So I really appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me. This has helped me also, because sometimes when you say it out loud, it becomes even more of a reality. And yeah, I'm just so happy. I love what I do. And I just, you have to navigate different ways of doing things. It's kind of like going on a road trip. The highway's closed. Uh-oh, this is the only way I know how to go to get there. What do I do? Okay, we're going to go this way. So that's, basically the way that I'm looking at it.
You built the road kind of on the way too.
Yeah, you're right. You are so right.
You knocked down some trees, you paved the road, and you made it happen. Well, Veronica, again, thank you for coming on the show. I know the listeners are really going to love this one.
Well, thank you so much. It's been great being here.
It was my pleasure. It was my pleasure. And to everybody watching or listening, listen to what Veronica said. Learn how to say no, set boundaries. And when you're going through difficult times, sometimes you're just going to have to endure. That doesn't mean to not take action, but sometimes even when you take that action, you're going to have to endure. So we're here for you the same way that you're here for us. Thank you so much for watching or listening, and for everybody supporting the show. It has drastically grown over the last few months, and we are not slowing down at all. We will see you next time on Find Your Edge.
Bye.
Take care.